So I got here yesterday, and you know you're too close with your friends, so I was posting that I'm here at this particular event that I'm going to be talking about metrics. And I get this nice email, or actually inbox, from one of my friends that says, "Steve, glad to see you talking about metrics later today. However, your measure of stupidity is off the charts. With your dad having surgery this morning, your father-in-law having surgery this afternoon, and your wife's birthday on the same day, you're either high on the bravery metric or high on the stupidity metric. Go get them." So this is the first year in 24 years I've been married that I've missed my wife's birthday to be here with you guys. So you have to do one thing for me, okay? I'm going to videotape this, and you're all going to say, "Happy birthday, Cheryl," so that I can post it and make this thing go viral. Are you cool with that? All right, you're going to do this on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday, Cheryl.
It was all worth it. I'll be out of the nasty box when I get home or something. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But thank you for having me here today. So about 4 years ago, I was traveling down to Florida to speak at another event. And as you do, you start talking to the guy or the gal next to you, just, why you going, where you going, all that, because it was just he and I up in the first class area. So I was asking him what he does, and he says, "Well, I'm the CEO of one of the Tier 1 automotive suppliers in Detroit." I said, "Great, what do you go down to Florida for?" He says, "Well, I'm going down to Florida because I want to oversee the construction of my retirement condo, which is 17,000 square feet." I thought, well, that's a heck of a retirement condo. But we continued the conversation, and we had a really great dialogue because he was getting ready, as I said, to retire. But what happens after a period of time? They turn the conversation on you, right? And what do you do? And I said, well, I'm going to speak at a conference down in Florida on TA stuff, so talent acquisition, metrics, and so on. And just picture this. I'm in one seat, he's in the next seat, and as soon as I say that, he goes, "Ew." CEO, Tier 1 automotive supplier. So what do you mean, ew? He says, "Oh, you're one of them." I said, "One of who?" You're a recruiter." I said, "Well, kind of." So he starts to tell me about this head of TA that he has. He loves the guy, thinks he's just awesome, but he can't stand the work that he and his department are doing. They're coming up with all these metrics that don't mean darn, squat. He didn't use that word. He used something a little bit more colorful, right? And he's going on and on and on, and he's getting so worked up, he's sweating on the plane. Now, this is how ticked off this guy is because I mentioned that I happen to be a recruiter or in that field. Well, what I didn't share with you is about 2 weeks prior to that, I'm sitting in my office, and I get this call. "Is this Steve?" "Yeah, who's this?" "I can't tell you." Okay, now I think somebody's pulling a practical joke on me or something like that. And he says, "I got a problem." I said, "Okay." And then all of a sudden I hear this shuffling in the background, and he hangs up the phone. Okay, now I'm a little weirded out. What's going on? He knows my name. He knows where I am. He knows where my office obviously is, and so forth. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm on this flight. I meet this guy. I get back from this event in Florida, back in my office, and guess who calls me? "Hey, Steve." Okay, this is time number 2 here. Tell me, what do you need? "Well, I've got a problem, and I want to talk to you about it." "Who are you?" "I can't tell you." "What's going on?" Then he starts to let go on this thing. He says, "Well, I work for this automotive supplier." See where this is going, right? This is no BS either. "And I got this problem because I've been here for about 2 years. I completely revamped everything we're doing. Our cost per hire is where it needs to be. Our time to fill is where it needs to be. And all I'm getting is crap back from the CEO, the leadership team, and so forth." Who do you think his boss was, or his boss's boss was? The guy that I was sitting next to on the plane. So I offered to come in and play referee between the two. The 3, really, because the CHRO was there as well. But it paints this perspective of some of the things that are wrong with our metrics. Not that time to fill and cost per hire are bad, because they're not. But in this particular case, there was this disconnect. In HR, we love to use the term alignment. Hate that term. But right, they were looking at the same exact thing, but they were looking at something very differently, or they were getting something very different out of it because the CEO's complaining, "All I'm getting is noise from my team. I don't care what the metrics say." The head of TA is saying, "All I'm getting is noise from the team, but we got these awesome frickin' metrics." Where's the disconnect between the two? So one of our problems with metrics is they're not aligned. But there's a couple of other problems with metrics. So what about this whole idea of unintended consequences? How do metrics drive unintended consequences, potentially? Thoughts? So if you have the wrong metric, how could it drive the wrong thing? Any sense? American Airlines. I'm going to pick a non-Canadian airline. American Airlines. You remember when all the U.S. airlines, or even some of the Canadian airlines at one point went bankrupt or filed for bankruptcy reorganization? There was a really, really dark time. Well, what did American Airlines do after reorganization? Do any of you know the story? So the executives in charge had this great idea that said, we're going to put metrics on our pilots. And we're going to say, for every $1 million you save in fuel costs, we'll bonus a percentage of it back to you. Now, if I'm sitting there as the pilot, what am I going to do? Figure out a darn way that I'm going to save on my fuel costs. What do you think that started happening? What? No, not safety issues. Well, at least not that we know of. They started canceling flights. So if the flight wasn't full enough, they would make up some story about maintenance, and this is now proven. They would cancel the flight. So what happens? They got their bonus. What was the long-term effect? Pissed off their customers, did it not? And started going to the others. Unintended consequences.